Hi guys, it's a really windy day. It is a beautiful autumn day and the leaves are coming down, but it's gorgeous and warm. I think we're getting a cold front moving in, but look at my wind spinners. Both of them are busy spinning away. The one up at the top of the hill, and then this one here. So that is just a windy, wonderful day. But I wanted to show you a couple things. The first thing I wanted to show you was my huge elephant ear plant. Now this is a bulb that you plant out in the spring, and my friend Lori gave me this beautiful plant. It was just a small dry bulb when she gave it to me. It grew into this enormous, gorgeous tropical looking plant. Isn't that spectacular? But I did want to show you before I have to take it and put it inside. In a week or two, I expect we may have a freeze come, or maybe a light frost at night. And this one has to go inside for the winter where I live. I don't live in a tropical climate, so I don't want it to die. And so in a couple weeks, I'll be chopping down the leaves and digging up the bulb and bringing it in. But I did want to give you a peek at it before that happens. It's such a beautiful plant, really spectacular. Let me show you what I did next to it. I pretty much started a new bed. I have a couple of scraggly tomato vines left, which are on their last legs. They're only there because they have a couple tomatoes which I hope will ripen, but they'll be pulled out. But this is the area I redid. I took out some hostas which were very badly eaten by slugs, and I moved them to a new area, hoping that perhaps they'll do a little better there. We'll see what happens to them next year, but for now they're moved, and they had looked horrible anyway, so it's a big improvement. But what I ended up doing down here in its spot was putting some compost over the soil that was there, which by the way was pretty nice soil. I think because it was always covered with hosta leaves, the soil was in really good shape. It was shaded a lot, so I think all the microorganisms really thrived in that condition, and also slugs, I guess. But I put some of my own homemade compost. I put some paper, and then I planted green manure. I'm getting one last flush of green manure in here to give it some nitrogen. And then throughout, I planted these little tiny sprouts which I've grown, which are pak choi. They're the small bok choy plants, and I believe they're called pak choi. But look at that, guys. So I have several of those throughout the front, and then I planted really teeny tiny little Brussels sprouts as well. So we'll see what grows. If anything grows, I'll be thrilled. The green manure itself will be dying back, but the other plants, the bok choy, pak choi, and the Brussels sprouts should grow through the winter. And then the green material here, which is actually lentils. I planted lentils that I planted here. That'll just die back and become a mulch and add nutrients to the soil, nitrogen modules off its roots, and then green organic matter on the top, which just creates a nice layer. And then I have a little, this was a grapevine propagation that I did. Let me move away this huge leaf. Move that out of the way so you can get a better look. Here we go. There's my little grapevine propagation, which will get more sun once the elephant ears are gone. And then over here, I have the original plant right here next to my black-eyed Susans. This is a big black-eyed Susan patch right here next to my steps. And then, but this is the original grapevine where I took the cuttings, and it couldn't have been easier just to take a cutting and stick it in some sand, and it rooted out and gave me a second grapevine down over there. So my winter plan for this bed will be, if it all works out, some pak choi, which last year grew all winter for me. a few tall Brussels sprout plants, and then the grapes will vine up back in the spring. So guys, that's my plan for this little section, and the elephant ear will soon be gone, tucked away for the winter. I wanted to give you an update on this little stretch of garden right next to the fence here. My fig tree looks fantastic. I planted this last year. It's a good 3 feet tall, 3 or 4 feet, so I'm really happy about that. And I have some beans planted here to add a little nutrients to the soil. Sometimes in September I throw down some beans or lentils and let them have a chance to fix the nitrogen in the soil. It also looks very pretty until it dies, and then it just turns into somewhat of a mulch. But and there's a little hydrangea plant. That was a cutting I took, and it seems to have taken really well. I'm excited about that. I have a couple of holly ferns here right next to my bird bath. Looks like I need to clean that out a little bit for the birds. And then I have a beautiful fern in the back, which is starting to die back a bit as it's getting colder at night. That should flush back next year in the spring and be a beautiful plant. That was another plant my friend Lori gave me. She gave me lots of ferns. And then back here it looks like a bit of a mess now, but I have added in a couple of hostas, which I dug up and moved from another part of my yard. And I have some tiny boxwoods here, which I grew from cuttings. And it said they can tolerate shade, so we'll see. I planted 3 of them throughout here. They're awfully small now, but I figured they'll add some winter interest because they stay green. And actually, once the tree loses its leaves, a lot more sun gets back here throughout the winter. So they'll get a good dose of sun in the winter time. Here's another one down here. And then I planted pachysandras, which I relocated from my side hill. And in a couple of years, actually, this whole area should be filled with it. It should take right off. It does really well in my yard. And it does appreciate the shade. So I'm going to have the pachysandra and the boxwoods throughout here. It looks like not too much right now, but it should look nice in a couple of years. Gardening takes patience, especially when you want to do most of it for a small to no cost. And you're just using plants you've propagated yourself or plants from friends. It's fun to kind of build on it. Then I have a couple different kinds of hostas here. And I added this owl pot, which I moved from the front of my garden. And I have a tiny little heuchera, which was doing terrible in the landscape, which I have repotted here, and I'm hoping it'll flush out for next year. But I am going to probably add more heuchera to that because that's one that really appreciates shade. And then I have a type of a reading corner, just with a couple of my Adirondack chairs. And finally, here's my art installation. I'm making it seem fancy, but it's just some coffee cans which I made into little owls. Aren't they cute? I just took lids and the bottom of the little forks and used it for their feet, but I made 3 little owls to hang in my tree. So this is kind of like a little owl corner with my little coffee can owls. It's fun to make these little things. You can look them up on Pinterest and get a good idea. Just take some recycled coffee cans and lids and a couple of screws. You put holes in the lids. Couldn't be any easier. The feet are just glued on with some E6000, which is appropriate to be outside. So hopefully they'll hold up over the winter. And these are starting to rust, which I really like the way they look. I like that they're going to be brown. So that'll be neat. But that's my art installation, guys, over my Adirondack chairs. And I thought that the owl pot was the perfect addition to this little corner, this owl-themed corner. So that's it, guys. That's my new bed. Not looking like too much now, But I think it'll be fun to watch the progress, and hopefully everything will take and be happy in this spot. But thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and I will see you next time.